Grand Slam track is finally upon us, with the first slam going down in Kingston, Jamaica on April 4th all the way to April 6th. And I was just, of course, down in Kingston for the high school boys and girls champs, and the stadium, the track, all of it was beautiful. So I'll be right back down for Grand Slam track, as of course there's no way that I'm going to miss the first ever event. So today I'm gonna be giving my full predictions for the men's short sprints, including who's gonna be winning the 100, the 200, as well as who's gonna be ultimately the overall winner of the first slam. Now, before we jump in, be sure to subscribe to City of Smag on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. We're gonna have tons of content throughout the entire week leading up to slam, during slam, and after this first slam in Kingston. And if you're not already subscribed to me here on YouTube, be sure to do so, as well as, of course, I'm gonna have my few predictions coming out over the next couple days. Now, let's be clear. This is just my personal opinion. These are my predictions based on my own analysis as of Monday, March 31st. You already know what the comment section is for. Give me your thoughts, give me your predictions, give me your insight into who you think are going to be finishing in the top positions for this first slam. But let's dive in with the men's short sprints. First off, who's in this field? Well, we have 4 racers: Kenny Bednarek, Fred Kerley, Oblique Seville, and Zarnell Hughes. But then we also have 4 different challengers: Courtney Lindsay, Ackeem Blake, Terrence Jones, and Joseph Famboulé. Friday evening is where we'll see the 100 meters go off, and jumping right in, I have Ackeem Blake taking the win here. Now, Ackeem has been in impeccable form all throughout the start of 2025, having run some quality hundreds and 200s, including a 10.06 just 2 weeks ago, and he also improved his 200 meter personal best to 20.20, essentially indicating that he is in great form and ready to compete. Now, though Ackeem hasn't done as well when it comes to like the Worlds and Olympics, and he has had mixed results on the circuit in the past, he did take down a strong 100 meter field at the Diamond League final last year, and he has other big wins at various different meets like the LA Grand Prix and different things like that. All that to say, he is capable of getting the win over this field in the 100, and I suspect he is tired of being forgotten about when it comes to being a top sprinter. Now, behind him, I think Oblique Seville is going to be able to come up for second place. And yes, no surprise, I have the top 2 Jamaicans finishing 1-2 at home in Kingston. Oblique has not run a 100 meter race yet, but looking at previous years, he has tended to run pretty well early in the season, including in 2023 when he ran 10.18 in the mid-March and then 9.95 in early April, or even last year when he ran his 200 meter personal best of 20.17 in mid-March. So regardless of the times, that shows me that Oblique seems capable of running well early on in the year. But I do think Ackeem Blake is in slightly better form, so Seville, in my opinion, is going to settle for second place in the 100. But that's where we have Kenny Bednarek coming in for third place. He also has consistently shown high quality form at this time of year, including a 10.01 and a windy 9.91, both in April of last year. He also ran a 20.35 into a negative 2.8 headwind in early April last year. So it's hard for me to not see Kenny as a key player and at least top 3 in the 100 here. Behind that, things get very interesting, but I have Zarnell Hughes and Fred Kerley in 4th and 5th place respectively. Now, Fred did run pretty well at Texas Relays to anchor the 4x1, and he also ran a 10.23 at USC 2 weeks ago. But that same weekend, Zarnell was running 10.11 and 10.14 right in Kingston. So I'm going to be giving the edge to Zarnell. And also, Fred, in previous years, for example, in early 2024, he hasn't truly dominated races like he is capable of doing throughout the season. And that's not to say anything of his talent or his ability, but just simply when matching things up here for Grand Slam, I think Zarnell will come out slightly ahead, again, for 4th place to Fred's 5th place. Now, to round out the 100 meter field, I have Joe Famboulé, Terrence Jones, and Courtney Lindsay in 6th, 7th, and 8th place respectively. Now, Joe, he's shown the ability to run relatively fast early on, right? He has a windy 10.04 in 2023 and a legal 10.07 from 2024, both in early April. Those prove that he can put down some quality times, but on top of that, he's run well at the African Games last year and was part of that fast 4x1 down in Florida. But I think his experience against some of the top guys in the 100 keep him outside of the top 5 just for me. Now, Terrence Jones, he's in his first professional season, and he actually had some quality indoor 60-meter races, which I think will probably translate into, some quality hundreds. But I'll be honest, it's hard to kind of directly determine how he might actually match up, since 2023 was the last time that he had a true quality outdoor season in the 100 specifically, with a best of 9.91, which was in April of that year. But finally, Courtney Lindsay, he'll be kicking off his season here as well. But based on his early season 100-meter performances from last year with 10.28 and 10.32, that may not bode as well for his potential against this high-quality field. But he is a full year older and, of course, more experienced, so I very well could be wrong. And we might see something very different in the 200, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now, before diving into that 200, I do want to kind of highlight the excitement that I actually have specifically for the competition and not so much for the times, right? We need to remember that this is still relatively early in the year, so I don't care too much how fast people are running, if they're going to hit these, records or times, but I'm more interested in how they actually compete against each other in these head-to-head matchups. So even though I'm using some of these times and performances as, metrics for my predictions from previous years, and I'm saying that it's early season, etc., that doesn't mean that I'm predicting athletes to run faster or slower. It's simply metrics that I'm using to provide some insight into what form they might be in right now. And also, when I say early season, I understand I'm taking Grand Slam track very, very seriously. And to me, these 4 slams actually matter. These are very, very important. But I do also have to live with the reality that many athletes are still focused on the World Championships. So their training and preparation right now isn't going to be indicative of what they might be doing later on in the summer. So that's when I say early season, and I'm kind of taking performances from previous years. But moving over to the 200, which will go off on Saturday evening, here is where I'm turning the tables and giving Kenny B the win. Now, first off, Kenny is a racer, and the racers get preferred lanes of 4, 5, 6, and 7. Which they're going to be assigned at random. Kenny can run from any of those lanes comfortably, which is perfectly fine. So on top of that, he is by far the best 200-meter runner in the field. And it's really not even close, both on the clock and in terms of the competition. I think the last time that Kenny lost a 200-meter race to anyone in this field was in Budapest 2023, when he was injured and finished 5th place behind Zarnell Hughes, who was in 4th, but just by 0.5 seconds. And prior to that, I think he was injured in 2022 when he finished behind Fred Kerley at USA Championships that year. Add to that, Kenny B ran 20.25 into a headwind in April last year. Add to that, he is the double Olympic silver medalist, the Diamond League champion, all these accolades. Listen, Kenny is the class of this 200-meter field, and it's literally just not even close. But second place, might surprise you, but I have Courtney Lindsay. Like I was saying, he is a very, very good 200-meter runner. And now, of course, I had him last in that 100, but the 200 is his forte right now. He is capable of competing against the best when it counts the most. And more specifically, last year in April, he dropped times of 19.88 and 19.71, again, in April. And in that latter race, he actually took down Letsila Toboho, proving he can show up against high-quality competition. So, Courtney Lindsay, he tends to show up early, and I think he'll do that right here in Kingston. Third place, Ackeem Blake. Ackeem Blake is going to continue this trend of high quality showings in 2025. He recently set a personal best of 20.20, but also ran his 3rd fastest time ever of 20.49, both in March of this year. And the former of which was ahead of Zarnell Hughes, one of the racers in this field. So I think he'll get a good finish here in the 200. But one thing to note is that because both Courtney and Ackeem are challengers, they'll end up with a random draw for the remaining lanes of 3, 8, 2, and 1. So there is a possibility that they end up running out of a lane that unfortunately isn't too favorable when talking about the 200, right? Like 1, 2, or something like that. But because of that, I have Zarnell in 4th place. He ran that 20.41 behind Ackeem Blake, but he will have a slightly better lane draw, which may point towards a good race here. But in previous years, he has run times of 20.40 and 20.25 in March, which have shown that he is capable of showing up very early. Now, in 5th and 6th, this is where I slot in Fred Kerley and Oblique Seville, respectively, 5th and 6th. Fred last year did have a good showing in kind of early May in the 200, but I think for the same reasons I said about in the 100, I think the other guys are just going to be a bit better in form to get those top 4 spots. Oblique, he is not the strongest 200-meter runner, only having hit a best of 20.53 this year, but he does have a personal best of 20.17 from March last year. So he's actually more than capable of showing up and exceeding my expectations, but I very well could be proved wrong about both Fred and Oblique, since they are racers and they'll have kind of the preferred lay draws here in Kingston. Do keep that in mind. But to round out the field, Joe Fahnbulleh, Terrence Jones, they're going to get my 7th and 8th spots. Joe, last year, he ran 20.06 in April, but when it comes to competing against the best guys, despite always making the global finals, he unfortunately hasn't done well, I guess, kind of throughout the years in very big races. Essentially, he just hasn't been as consistent. Now, Terrence Jones, on the flip side, he is still a bit unknown in the 200 right now since he was injured last year, he just turned pro, and he hasn't had many quality 200-meter races. Though, his indoor 60s could be indicative of something special here. Also, note that both will not have favorable lane draws, again, something that can also affect Courtney Lindsay and Ackeem Blake, who I did, of course, place to finish much higher here. So let's tally up these scores. The winner of each race gets 12 points, second place gets 8 points, and then it goes down from 6 to 1 for third to last place. That means the final scores for me have Kenny and Ackeem tied for first place to win the slam, but they of course wouldn't end up tied, as the Grand Slam track rules say, quote, "In the case of a tie, the competitor with the highest individual finish will be awarded the higher place." But in my scenario, I had both Ackeem and Kenny winning the 100 and 200 respectively. So the rules further clarify that, quote, "If there still is a tie, the lowest combined time of both races for each competitor will be used to determine place. In the event there is still a tie, the tied competitors will split the corresponding combined prize money equally." So personally, I think that Kenny B will actually end up with an overall lower combined time, specifically because I think he'll run much faster in the 200, whereas I think his 100 time in third will be a bit closer to Ackeem's winning time in the event there. Also note that someone like Joe Fahnbulleh and Terrence Jones, they are tied for 4th place in my points here, but based on the rules, since Joe has a higher finish with his 6th in the 100, he gets the nod over Terrence, whose best finish here is only a 7th in both the 100 and the 200. So I'm predicting the winner of the short sprints for the Kingston Slam to be Kenny Bednarek, with Ackeem Blake coming up just short and Oblique Seville in 3rd place. But as I always say, these are just my personal opinions and my personal predictions. If you haven't already though, go over to Coach Rob. He has a high-level conversation that we did of the short sprints and the picks that we were making, which kind of complements this more in-depth breakdown on my end after kind of, of course I went through the numbers and all that stuff. But now it's time for you to go in the comments and let me know what you think about the men's short sprints, and if you think I made the right picks, or if you think that I should be doing something completely different. And sure, I know some of you will complain and say that I'm crazy, but you try doing a full breakdown of each athlete before just blindly coming at me. It's not easy. So be sure, if you haven't already, to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.